Giants are huge, powerful, and temperamental. They come in many varieties, from the dumb and chunky hill giants to the massive and wise oracles that are the storm giants. The giants hold themselves to a hierarchy known as the Ordning, an ancient decree that determines who among giant kind holds the authority. While the impressive storm giant sits atop the Ordning, the cloud giants truly represent those that flex their authority. Cloud giants trace their lineage back to the cloud giant god of trickery and deception, Memnor. Some cloud giants take their heritage a little too seriously, being shunned by even those among their own kind. These giants are known as smiling ones.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the image too big for you to see the whole thing? Is it giant?
I am the DeckofManyToyboxes, and today we learn how to run a cloud giant smiling one. Ha ha! Smiling ones emphasize their charisma and deception over brute strength. They prefer to charm and beguile their way through an encounter over smashing the opposition, and this is reflected in the smiling one's stat block. A cloud giant smiling one is a huge cloud giant that is most often chaotic and neutral, allowing them to have all manner of motives and goals. All giants have thick skin, and the smiling one has thick enough skin to give them a 15 AC. They need to have thick skin for the party's bards counter insults back at them. Smiling ones have a lot of hit points, as do all giants, at 262 on average. Giants are fast thanks to their impressive size, and the smiling one has a 40 feet speed to show that. It has a strength of 26, which is very strong and allows the smiling one to be effective in combat if subterfuge doesn't work. It has a dexterity of 12, since it's big and slow to react.
Moving that much chonk is hard, guys.
They have a hefty 22 for Constitution, which is why their hit points are so high. A smiling one is rather intelligent for a semi-mortal creature at 15, and their wisdom score of 16 means that most will find it difficult to trick the smiling one. The charisma on the smiling one is pretty high when compared to your average cloud giant, at 17. A cloud giant smiling one is challenge rating 11, giving them a proficiency bonus of +4, and they have proficiency with Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom saving throws. They are proficient with the Deception, Insight, Perception, and Sleight of Hand skills. Since they are adept at lies and trickery, a smiling one speaks, reads, and writes common and giant. Smiling ones are cloud giants and therefore have a keen sense of smell, giving them advantage on perception checks that rely on smell. Cloud giants, and by extension smiling ones, can innately cast several spells, those being Detect Magic, Fog Cloud, and Light at will. Featherfall, Fly, Misty Step, Telekinesis up to 3 times per day, and Control Weather and Gaseous Form, once per day each. Smiling ones also show their charisma with their bardic spellcasting. They are usually 5th level spellcasters that have the following spells prepared: the cantrips, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, and Vicious Mockery. The 1st level spell, Cure Wounds, Disguise Self, Silent Image, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter, with 4 spell slots. The 2nd level spells, Invisibility and Suggestion, with 2 slots. And the 3rd level spells, Major Images and Tongues. These many spellcasting options give the smiling one tons of options in combat. In the event that a smiling one needs to get physical, they are still a cloud giant and therefore impressive fighters. They have multi-attack, in which they make 2 attacks with their Morning Star. Okay, so I think that this is just a result of Wizards of the Coast translating the cloud giant stat block and giving them spellcasting. If I were to change one thing for the smiling one stat block, it would be the Morning Star. Make it a short sword or a dagger, so that it feels like the smiling one is a sneaky rogue, not a blundering brute. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk on smiling ones. Being a giant, they can also just huck a rock at you. You may look at this and think, how can throwing a rock be an effective weapon? Until you realize that the thrower has a strength of 26 and is 26 feet tall, meaning this rock probably weighs several hundred pounds, which is why it does 30 damage on impact. The Morning Star does 21 damage on average. Now, even these attacks are tricky, because the smiling one gets the sneak attack of a 7th level rogue, meaning their attacks do an extra 14 damage when the cloud giant has advantage. The final ability of a smiling one is their ability to change their shape. They can polymorph into a beast or humanoid they have seen, and they maintain the same stats except their size while polymorphed. Just imagine seeing a goblin walk up to a boulder that's 8 times his size, look at it for a second, and then rip it out of the ground and chuck it at you like a baseball. And that goblin's name was the Rock. That's it for the stat block, so let's talk about the giant before moving on to the encounter. I would begin by modifying the stat blocks so that the giant fits more with your campaign. As far as stat blocks go, the Smiling One is pretty bare bones, and as evidenced by the Morningstar attack, has some thematical errors associated with it. I would start with making the Smiling One a higher level spellcaster, maybe 7th level, and give it more spells. Also, I would adjust the charisma or intelligence stats to match the type of Smiling One you want in your campaign. While you can do this with any stat block, I emphasize it for this one since the Smiling One doesn't feel very unique. It feels like they just took a cloud giant and just smacked some generic bard and rogue levels onto it. Also, legendary actions will make your Smiling One stand out. Give it the ability to use Vicious Mockery as a legendary action, or maybe it can polymorph itself as a legendary action. As far as personality is concerned, Smiling Ones are deceptive. They're charismatic rogues that use their spells and skills to worm their way into scenarios and sow chaos in order to forward their plans. Cloud Giants live for quite a while and are proud of their position in the Ordning. Out of the 3 monsters we've done on this series so far, the Smiling One is the creature that I can guarantee the party wouldn't encounter alone. Speaking of which, let's move on to the encounter. To start off, I won't go over the entirety of the Fire Giant stat block, but it's safe to assume that the Smiling One would have 1 or 2 of the strong brutes as bodyguards. Fire Giants are below the Smiling One in the Ordning, so they would follow the Cloud Giant's orders. The Smiling One wouldn't allow itself to get into a scenario where it would have to fight the players alone. Again, we are approached by a low dexterity monster, so it's safe to assume the Smiling One would be 3rd in the initiative, with the slow and dumb Fire Giant guards moving 4th or even 5th in the order. The Smiling One would stay in the back, casting spells like Vicious Mockery and Major Image to aid its bodyguards in smashing the party, possibly jumping in to get a sneak attack in against players distracted by the Fire Giants. This routine would continue until the bodyguards are killed, in which case the Smiling One would attempt to flee, transforming into a small animal and escaping, or if you want your Smiling One to appear particularly clever and evil, have the giant flip a lever that opens a door, revealing a squad of ogres or hill giants that act as another set of brutes to soak up attention while the Cloud Giant either escapes or sticks to the shadows. This honestly should prove a very dangerous encounter. The party will have trouble getting to the Cloud Giant through the meat shields that it will have aiding it. Remember, the giant would rather escape to fight and trick another day than dying to puny humans, since Cloud Giants have a pretty long average lifespan of hundreds of years, so they're not going to let themselves just be killed by mere mortals. Thank you guys for watching. I know that this was a shorter video, but I hope that I have helped you learn how to run a Cloud Giant Smiling One. I stress once again that using the stat block as a baseline and editing it to make it seem more special and legendary. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's shuffle the deck and see what we draw next. Oh, my lord, it's a gargantuan purple worm! Run for your lives!